with this one, we are literally only ever going to dispense as much water as we actually need to water the field. So that's being the idea right there. Alright everyone, hello and welcome back to another episode on Scrap Mechanic with me, Spacefish. And, well, welcome back to our base. In the last episode, we actually deviated from our original plans a bit. We took care of advancing our, well, soon-to-be logging vehicle a bit more, you know, scoping out the chassis, putting on some blocks, designing things a bit here and there, and just making some overall progress on that, because I was kind of honestly dreading rebuilding the whole entire logic on this farm right here, which, well, quite unfortunately got destroyed by a wave of haybots a few episodes ago, because I was absolutely minding my own business and not remembering there was a wave coming for me. So, well, with that now sort of somewhat done for the time being, we'll focus back today on the farm, get some logic rolling, make some improvements as well compared to the last time we created the logic, so I hope that is going to go well for us, and well, then let's see how good that works out for us. But, just quickly, before we get started, if you're new around this channel and you happen to enjoy this episode, please make sure to hit that subscribe button right down below. We're trying to hit 1k subs by the end of the year, so every single one of you would help out a ton. But, with that then all said and done, let's first things first maybe quickly go into here and check out what parts I have. Now, if you'll remember, I was already slightly talking about this in the comments, the improvements that I wanted to maybe look at, because Bartle had already let me know down below in the comments that technically on my old setup I wouldn't really even need a timer and the logic gate, and I could just, you know, save myself some material costs that way, and I looked into that, and I kind of liked the idea of improving it, and I even looked a bit further around than what Bartle had told me, and even checked out some YouTube videos, and based on a YouTube video of a fellow video creator who's a lot bigger than me, going by the name of, I think, John Bain. I'll make sure to leave the respective video also, of course, down below in the description. I, well, found a new farming system that I want to try out with you today that has got a bunch of advantages compared to my old one. It does also not require a timer. It does, however, require still a logic gate and a second logic gate, but I do think that we have one remaining in the farm, so that should be good. It does still, of course, require a controller, and it does require 2 sensors on top of all this stuff. So, well, let's try and have some fun with that as well. We'll also need some glass blocks, and hopefully this is going to work as intended. I'm a bit anxious to see. What I do want to try is actually maybe using a button instead of a switch, as was indicated by John, but we will see about that as we're going. So let's make our way over to the farm. Yes, I do still have scrap stone. Unfortunately, we're somewhat slightly out of concrete now, because we do not have a pond at the chemical no, not a pond, a pump at the chemical pond yet, as I just found out that's a possibility a few episodes ago, and I don't know, I just haven't really found the time to set that up just yet, but I think we'll probably tackle that sometime soon as well then. So, over here then, we do have our reinforced version of this whole huge thing, and we'll just kind of somewhat start this thing up as we used to, with a bit of a bigger pillar maybe. I mean, we do technically have a lot more scrap stone than, well, than we had concrete the last time, so we'll just start things out this way, make things a little bit more reinforced, and I think from that point on, honestly, we can just save a bit of materials, because up there, where, well, either the haybots will have already destroyed the entire pillar by the time we get there, because we absolutely forgot about things again, or they will honestly not even reach this height of block, and it's all going to be quite fine, I think. So, we're going to give this a bit more space than the last time, I would say, and then we will actually have to somewhat align the water cannon above our field. Now, what I have found out during the course of that video, which I guess is somewhat evident right here, is that these, well, dirt blocks are 3x3s, basically. So, what we're ideally trying to achieve would be having this in, like, the water cannon in the middle of the dirt block to start us off with, basically. So, right here. this would be where we would want the water cannon to be at. Now, in terms of said water cannon, though, we will go and place it on a bit of a piston, as we kind of did things before. So we'll probably actually grab both of these pistons. Now, one of these is still a level 1 piston, the other is a level 3 piston. We'll probably want to upgrade that as we go. But let's try and find the optimal placement for the water cannon, which actually kind of means I would probably want the water cannon in my inventory. If you don't know, the water tank is all the way back there still, so we're going to attach that all the way from there. Eventually, that's kind of on the same grid through this huge pillar structure, so we do not have to care about that for the time being. Now, I'm going to try and actually, first thing first, try and see how to line this thing. The thing is that we technically... Whoopsies. That was not my intention. Great. That's good. We're gonna have to rebuild that. But we're gonna have to find a bit of an alignment for the pistons first, because of course they will have to go around the corner and all. But let's make this a little higher again. Boop, boop, boop. Cool. And we will just go... Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Go away! Friggin' dude! I swear I haven't planted on anything on this farm previously, so that was not me missing things. It's just, you know, the other odd haybot, or not haybot, but toadbot coming to harass me in my building process. Not too happy about that, but yeah. So, what I think is actually that we have to build the piston here, technically, because, well, we do want to go... actually 2 blocks out. Yeah, so we want to go 2 blocks out. The thing is, okay, let's okay. I've got the idea of where we need to place things. So we basically from here need to go 2 blocks this way and 2 blocks that way. And as you always have to have a block on a piston, which cannot be a piston in itself, we will have to place that like this basically. Then we have the second then we then we click the right button, we place the second piston like that, and then we will kind of have the water cannon on top of here. Now we will probably want to check that this is somewhat nice and centered, and as you can tell, it isn't. So I suppose that we will be moving this thing over by 1, because while we're already here, we may as well do things right and, you know, not skimp out too much on this kind of stuff. So let's place that lift. Let's go all the way up, and we'll just kind of widen the pillar and put things down here instead. I guess it's going to be a bit more solid than originally thought, but, you know, that's not an issue, I suppose. We do have a lot of the scrap stone, as I previously said, so that is totally fine. So same thing again then. We'll be starting one block further off to the left, and this is then going to bring us into the middle of that, and we're going to go place a piston right there, and the water cannon right on top of that, and you can see that is pretty nice and center. So, what we then do is we go and actually probably potentially lower this a tad bit, because I do feel it's a bit far up. I'm not quite happy with that. So we'll go and lower this by a few blocks, you know, just do some fine tuning while we're here. I want to kind of try and keep this somewhat off the ground, so like no haybot accidentally. I mean, I'm sure on the haybot side it would be quite intentional, but so no haybot actually destroys my stuff while I'm, you know, once more not checking out things, but at the same time, I don't want it that far up. So I think that's a bit better. That should be quite fine. You can see that should all hopefully be quite reachable for us. And yeah, I mean, we'll kind of have to see about the range in terms of how far out we need to go. This was a 5 plot thing, so we'll see. We'll kind of experiment with that as we go. That said, that is that then constructed. Now what we want up here, and let's go and maybe get up on the lift real quick, is going to be a little bit of a grid basically. So how said grid is supposed to work is that in the end we'll have, well, a sensor basically on top of this very water cannon, which Well, ideally it would be centered, but as you can see, it cannot be quite centered, so we just kind of want to make sure that it's centered in terms of the, well, the middle block for the dirt itself, basically, given that it's a 3x3, you know, if you would measure this in blocks, you would want to have it spot on in the middle, and as you can see right here, we are spot on in the middle, so that is beautiful. And then what we want to have is basically, if we move out of the way and absolutely fall down the thing and just go back up on the lift, let me try and do that again. Basically what we wanted to have going for us is going to be a grid, and I think this is one too close, but let me double check that. We want a grid where basically, oh, this could actually be good. Yeah, so this would be the grid height that we want to go for. Not quite in that much of a weird line, I suppose. But we will do just this and remove a few of these blocks that we don't need. So what we'll be doing right here is basically pulling out a long straight line. And ultimately, we will have, with the glass blocks basically, blocks that the detector can actually use to detect when it has to dispense water for us. So with, well, this being kind of the starting spot, and with a distance of 3 blocks, we are always going to just along this grid place some glass blocks, and every time that this detector detects a glass block, it is going to dispense 1 unit of water for us. Now that already has kind of a bit of an inherent advantage compared to what we had going before with the timer, of course, because, well, the timer just after every tick dispenses 1 unit of water, and you know, that felt like a good bit of a waste, honestly, given that we sometimes watered blocks multiple times, especially when we were transitioning from one row to another, because that usually happened quite slowly, whereas with this one, we are literally only ever going to dispense as much water as we actually need to water the field. So that's being the idea right there. Now, we will, of course, have to do that for each and every line that we go for here. So every 3 lines we will go and extend that out, and you can see that's nice and center all the time. We will have to do that 2 more times, so 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and then we will pull that out to the same length that would be, given that we have enough scrap stone, which evidently we don't have. So let me go and quickly pick some more up, and I'll be back with you once we're back over there. Alright, so we are back, more scrap stone acquired, and of course, you know, you don't have to do this in scrap stone, it's just, you know, a waste material that I have way too much of anyway, so for me, it's kind of the most, well, obvious choice in terms of material usage for the time being to actually just use for this. Probably when I'm actually going to be designing proper house and everything, we would, you know, change that a bit in terms of design and actually make it, or at least try and make it a little more pretty, but for the time being, this is going to be the way that we go with that. Now with this, I mean, kind of the same approach as with the first row. We just every 3 blocks set down 1 glass block, and that is in the end going to be used as the points for the sensor to dispense water, and then we will have 1 sensor here at the end. Now what that sensor is going to be used for, you will see in just a second, but that is going to be our setup from there. So, what we need then is going to be a bit of a control unit, which of course we're going to place in here again, but I want to make this a bit more recessed this time around so that we can hopefully avoid our control units being absolutely smashed to pieces by bots. So we're going to remove that logic gate and we're going to recess this whole thing a tad bit more. And, well, I mean, given that we've got a controller, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go grab the controller, we're going to grab our 2 logic gates. We're just going to turn this around a bit, because you can see right here when these things are turned on, so I would actually like to have that kind of displayed on the outside, and we're going to, you know, put that in somewhat like that. And then we are, for the time being, going to close it off like this. We're probably going to place some blocks up on top of this eventually as well. what we're also going to do is probably just put like the button or the switch, whatever will end up working right here. Now in the video that I checked out, it was working using a switch, but I kind of noticed that the switch always stayed in the same on or off position after usage. So I was considering whether we can maybe make this work with a button as well, especially since I have surplus, and I would really kind of get a bit of an OCD triggering if the switch that I put there is sometimes red and sometimes green. Sorry, that's just me. But yeah, so now what we have is these logic gates. One of these is going to be an XOR and another one is going to be an AND. So what you are going to be doing with this XOR, and you know, that actually happens once you've placed the switch, respectively, button down. So let's go and do that right now, and maybe actually just cover that up on the top. Just make sure we've got some extra protection. I mean, this is just scrap stone, literally. We don't really care that much about it, and it makes it a bit chunkier. So hopefully things are a little bit less prone to failing as quickly as they did the last time. But what you do, this was the XOR, right? Let me double check. It was. So what you do is you connect the XOR to this switch, or well, button for the time being. Technically it is a switch, as was kind of displayed in that video, and you connect it to this sensor right here. So what the idea behind this sensor then, and this XOR basically is that, well, the XOR kind of, it triggers, well, it is turned on when only one of these is active. When both of these are active, it turns off. So basically what that means is that once this thing is, well, this sensor is being triggered by this water cannon reaching said sensor, it turns the whole thing off and the pistons go and draw themselves back in, if that makes sense. Now that's kind of the point where I'm doubting that the button approach will work, because technically the button does have to be on, but as previously stated, you know, the switch was not always in the same position in said video, so I do want to double check, triple check if that actually works. Now what we're going to do with this XOR gate is we're going to connect that to the AND logic gate, because of course at the same time when this thing is turned on, we want the water cannon, no, not actually the water cannon, we want the, oopsies, we want the sensor right here to be activated, and every time that sensor is activated, we're basically going to send a pulse to the water cannon to go and activate it whenever it finds one of these blocks right there. So that is that, and then we want this thing, of course, when it is activated, to be turning on the controller, and I'll have to check that logic out 1 second. Alright, so my initial impulse of actually connecting the water cannon as well was evidently quite correct for the AND right here. So this one goes away and that one stays instead. Makes a lot more sense because the AND does, of course, kind of both connections need to be the case, and in that case the water cannon kind of dispenses the water. So if that sensor triggers if that sensor detects this block, it sends a signal to the AND gate, and then the AND gate triggers the water cannon. So that is that, and then of course the XOR we need to connect to the controller right here, because, well, when this thing gives out a true signal, it should turn on the controller to actually move this thing around the block, as well as triggering this AND gate, basically. Now, just having a quick look around, as evidently got quite dark while you were going, and I don't want all my stuff to be destroyed by bots again. You can see just how many totes I've killed around here. Look at all these blocks that I could technically attach with my logic tool. That's all tote bot heads. Quite the massacre out here over time, I have to say. But yeah, so that is then that, and then of course the controller itself will be what we use to connect the pistons, which for said thing we are of course going to need to upgrade this controller right here. So I'm going to go and actually quickly grab some well, component kits, and I'll be right back with you. Alright, and back we are, everyone, and with mixed news. these are the last 3 component kits we actually have remaining. So, not quite sure about the piston, to be honest. We may, in order to actually be able to complete this thing, have to go POI farming in the next episode. So, let's see about that. For now, what we definitely need is the upgraded controller. We're going to go and push that piston not by 1 level, because, well, quite evidently... we would need 2 component kits for that. So we're probably going to actually have to finalize this, but we should already be able to do a demo today as is, I hope. So the second attachment to the controller then being made like this, and now we actually, what we do need to see is what piston 1 is and what piston 2 is. So piston 1 is the one for this length extension, and piston 2 is then to actually switch rows. So what we are going to do is, of course, the first stage of this all is going to be everything being at 0, and then we are going to, on the next one, want to extend the piston out by 3 blocks, which, remind you, 3 blocks is the distance between these, so that's exactly the distance needed to, well, actually no, that is totally wrong. Excuse me. We're of course going to go for max extension. We're going to have to see 3, 6, 9, and 12. So you can already see we, even with the other piston, do have a bit of an issue where we still need to upgrade it. With the field length, of course, would need to be going out by 12 blocks. We can only go 11, so not quite going the distance we want. But of course, in the first stage, we're going to go and put this out with max speed, of course, to max extension, because we don't really need to stop in between things. The sensor is going to trigger independently, and that is going to basically then have to go all the way to the end, and then the distance between these is 3, so we would, in this step here, want to move that second piston over by 3 steps, just like that. So the other piston moves the whole construct sidewards. This thing goes all the way back. We keep it at 3. Then on this one, we move the construction at, over by 3 again, of course. Then we extend this whole thing all the way out again. We move that thing over by another 3 blocks, which, well, unfortunately we can't go any further due to our pistons limiting us, but you would basically kind of just repeat that game back and forth until you reach this very point with this very sensor right here. The only question actually being back, forth. Yeah, so you kind of course, have to keep in mind that the last row, the water cannon needs to start here and end here. Otherwise, you would have to switch that sensor to that side, of course, because otherwise it would already trigger early. So, the retrieval signal, unfortunately, not being something that we can quite yet show with the setup of these pistons, we'll have to push that with some more component kits. But what we can, of course, do is, we can have a little bit of a change right here. This one I think needed to be a switch. Yeah, okay. And that one right here, a button. Because, of course, this one being a button will then trigger that water cannon every time we reach a glass block. And this thing being a switch will give this permanent signal, which will make this thing come back. And once more, probably be the reason that this button thing won't work and we will actually need a switch. But that's something we will have to find out when we actually get to the point where the pistons can can extend far enough out to actually get themselves all the way back there. But this is already then, basically the water cannon should be working. We're not quite at a point yet where we could bring it back. But, you know, I would say we can try this out regardless. We will, though, have to... Why am I getting stuck here all the time? Oh, right, the water cannon is in the way. What we will have to do, though, is we will actually have to connect this water tank that we've got going all the way out here real quick. Chest. Give me component kits. Nice. That's one. Now we can push our piston 1 level, I suppose. It's going to need a few more to actually complete the thing. But why in the world not? So, this is our water tank right here that we already constructed for the last iteration of this farm. It's basically on the same grid as the farm itself, so we can just take our logic tool, extend this all the way out, basically, and that way, without needing to move over water, just instantly connect that water cannon to the water tank, and this will pull the water all day long for us. So, that's that. We're going to give this a quick try. I can already tell you that it is definitely not going to be coming back. And I can also already tell you that the button definitely doesn't work and we need an actual switch. So let me go and organize that one real quick as well, and then I'll be right back with you. Alright everyone, so switch is acquired. We will go and put that on here real quick, and what we can maybe also do real quick is already make this thing level 2. That'll give us a bit more leeway on the extension, and that'll also mean that we can just quickly work on this one a bit more. So 0, 6, extension 6, and then we would want to go extend this further, and we would also want to absolutely murder ourselves by not eating. Luckily I've got 1 burger remaining, but we're already in a food shortage again. I mean, I've got some tomatoes up here, but I do not really have much more wok meat, so we'll have to think about food and stuff too. But let's just, you know, here quickly then, 11, 9, and I'm quite sure, well, for a start, after extending, of course we have to pull this all the way back, I'm quite sure that we cannot go out to 12, no. So this will need another 2 levels in the piston, then we can move that all the way out to the right side here too. And, well, 1 more level in the other piston right here, which is, well, 2, so we will need like another 6 component kits, and then we will have that part finished. But for the time being, let's try and have a little bit of a quick tech demo. We will go and put that switch right here. That will, of course, be once more attached to the XOR, and then the XOR is, well, still connected to that, which won't matter for now, but by just simply turning it off, we should be able to bring this thing back anyways. And then you can see every time that sensor hits, well, or doesn't hit the glass block, you will be watering things. Of course, the piston is not quite able to extend all the way out. That's why it didn't water the last block. But yeah, so very much liking this concept, I have to say. You can see we're absolutely not wasting a single bit of water anymore. And by this block right here, instantly triggering this system to be turned off, you will also not be wasting any water at the very end when you forget to press, well, to turn off the button, because it automatically turns itself off and returns itself. And you can see on the return, due to this, well, sensor block being turned off by the logic gate, you're also not using any water every time the sensor hits the block, so that's absolutely beautiful. Really, really liking this system, I have to say. I think it's an incredible improvement over what we previously had. It goes a bit beyond Bartle's suggestion, but I hope you'll like it overall. I think it's a great, great little system, and, well, thanks to John, if you ever see this, for this great video, and, well, that great little farm invention, because I think it is absolutely great and beautiful, and it works very nice and flawlessly. For us, I think very much the right way to go. Next episode, then we're going to go POI farming. We're going to get us those component kits we need. We haven't been in POIs for quite a while anyway, so very much looking forward to that. And then we will finally have a working farm again. Hopefully it's going to be a bit more resilient. Hopefully it is going to be very nice and enjoyable to use, and hopefully we will finally then also get all the pineapples that we want and all the food that we need to survive. But with that said then, I hope you like this little construct, this advancement, and thanks so much to Bartle once more for suggesting to actually go further beyond what we originally did with the first farm. I think it was a great idea, and we're certainly going the right way here. We'll probably also in the future look at a bit of a farm defense system then and see what possibilities we have right there, and you know, hopefully that way also help the issue with me forgetting about raids a bit more. But that is all for the future. For today, it has been it. I hope you all enjoyed it as usual. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button down below. That does always help out the channel a ton. And if you're new around here and haven't done so just yet, also please consider subscribing right down below, as well as hitting that bell icon in order to stay up to date on all the future upcoming episodes. With all that out of the way though, as usual everybody, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I will catch you in the next episode very, very soon. Ciao.